Hello, this is Diego Mangabera, and in this podcast of Mind Alchemy, I want to talk to you in this episode about what is alchemy. Many times, in fact, you may have already heard, but maybe you do not have the correct understanding, the correct definition, the correct concepts that have been increasingly implanted. We can even say in our subconscious, in our unconscious, and sometimes we think it is, but it is not. So I want to start by talking a little bit about what is alchemy, and you may have noticed that many times you talk about it, maybe you have an understanding. I will even give some examples that probably are part of your world, part of your culture, part of your language. Even if we think about the concepts of alchemists, they have been part of humanity for many centuries. They are distributed, they are shown in several movies, books. A very famous one of the books that people know the most, and is very current even, is the Harry Potter book. Harry Potter, as it is very well known in the world, is very difficult for someone not to know. So, if you remember the stories of Harry Potter, especially the first book or the first movie, even if you have not read or watched the movie, the first book is about Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. When we talk about this Philosopher's Stone, including in this episode appears Nicholas Flamel, who was a great alchemist like me, we realize that several times we make a mention of alchemy and the Philosopher's Stone, which would be what we as alchemists always say, that is the way you will develop fully. We even confuse a lot, transforming the lead into gold. This is the basic principle of alchemy. So, always this search for wealth, always this search for transformation, but alchemy goes much deeper. It is not only this philosopher's stone that is physical, but it is as if we did it. Let's think like this. We are the sculptor of this stone, which is our existence. And this existence actually needs to be pruned, it needs to be sharpened. It needs to be like if you are a great sculptor, you take the hammer and you do it with the brush, more or less some instrument. You go sharpening, even the way you want, you evolve the way you need to evolve. This is interesting if we think that many times we are already doing alchemy, and when we talk about alchemy of the mind here in the academy, we talk a lot about it, this mixture that you have in relation to your own evolution, mental, spiritual, and this develops you to a new level. We can even talk about a concept of high performance. So it is very interesting for us to talk about it and even talk about alchemy for you, because at this exact moment, many of the things you have done are alchemy already. If you think in relation to the choice of the meals you do every day, sometimes the seasoning that you put in the meal, the seasoning that you put in the food, are you going to have lunch? So you choose what you want. Then you make a game, some options that are in front of you, and that is alchemy. From the same perspective, if we think about emotions, you have emotions about a certain situation, maybe in the financial part or the financial part, it does not matter currently, at this exact moment. Relationships, in the profession, when you get home, sometimes with your family, sometimes if you are married, boyfriend, girlfriend. Anyway, everything has to do with it. So we think, going back a little bit to the past, I made a way to explain in a more modern way, going back to the past, going back to 100,000 years before Christ, more or less where we talk about Atlantis, we talk about Lemuria, we talk about Sumeria, we have the first alchemical principles being unsold, being passed on from generation to generation, books. We also have mouth to mouth, very primordial teachings, which were lost. Even when we talk a lot about it, we refer a lot to the ancient concept that was very elaborate and spread after Atlantis, what we know today as Egypt, which today in fact we already know that it was not called Egypt, but it is called Kemet. Egypt, in fact, the way in this word was created by the Greeks, ad Egyptum, which would be to represent beyond the Aegean Sea, and the Aegean Sea bathes Greece. So when we think about this perspective, which is super interesting, we have several priests, several alchemists, and we have the Greek Orthodox Church, which is the one that is the most important. Remembering we have a very interesting figure of alchemy that we have talked about until today, which is Hermes Trismegistus, who in Greece will be known as the god Hermes. In addition, we have the ancient knowledge that Atlantis and Hermes were Thoth, including in Egyptian mythology, Thoth is the god of wisdom, so he actually makes the judgment and even helps people to understand better the judgment. Anyway, we can go much deeper, but this podcast I want to talk about alchemy, a very general part that needs to have. So when we think about it, we refer to what? There are many things that we are currently living, and we see, for example, in the figure of Hermes, for you to have the consolidation of what we know of the first alchemical laws. I even advise you to look for a book called Kybalion, which basically narrates the 7 laws of the world, the 7 hermetic laws, because it is hermetic because there are Hermes. So the seven Hermetic laws that we speak, including until today, we call it by the name of Hermetic laws. Hermetism is also very well known to help people to get to know each other, including these laws. We will record in the next podcasts in the audios, but it will be very widespread within the academy. We talk a lot about Hermetism. If you want to go deeper, including the Book of Hermes, I even advise you to enter the site www.diegomangabeira.com.br, and within the academy, we will explain in much more calm, much more detail. And why is this important for you to know? Because the Hermetic laws, in fact, they are timeless laws, like any spiritual or mental master. All masters, they spoke in a way that does not have time. The word does not age. And it is interesting, for example, we take a book that talks about Jesus Christ. If we take a book about Buddha, we take a book about Krishna, we take a book about Zoroaster, about Moses, about Muhammad, we realize that the lessons are timeless. They can be used at any time, regardless of the era. So it is interesting that because the Hermetic concepts are also the same way. So concepts that, for example, everything is in motion, everything does not stop, the universe does not stop, everything is in motion. And then you have, for example, Isaac Newton in a more modern way. There in the 17th, 18th century, we had the most elaborate concepts which create what we call laws of physics. You realize that here the lessons are being passed from generation to generation. Today, more and more, we talk about it because it is necessary, even so that you have the domain over you. We talk about it in the academy in a very simple way, because when you dominate yourself, you create a great opportunity for you to actually experience who you are, and that actually has no price. Because today, many people have been suffering from various types of problems, personal, spiritual, emotional, and in fact, there have been various types of treatment, including types of medications, or even what is mystical. And this exterior part, always this exteriorization of what I need to do, prevents you from finding yourself. You can even improve for a few days, for a few minutes, doing some certain prayer, doing some certain meditation, some kind of technique, something like that. But after a while, in fact, you go back to being who you were. And that is where the alchemical secret is. When you master this philosophical stone that exists within you, it has no way to go back. There is no way, for example, a great master of life, you learn and actually go back, and here is the secret. In the next podcasts, we will talk a lot about it. I invite you to enter our site, subscribe to our list, follow our site. I invite you to be present and enter our Academy of Mind Alchemy. Here is my invitation. It is very special for you. I wish you an excellent, a great day, a lot of light and prosperity, a big hug, and see you in more podcasts.